smash that like button, which is exactly how we're starting this meeting. Um,
Hello, everyone. My name is Brooks Townsend. Welcome to the wasmCloud community meeting for Wednesday, November 22nd. Thank you so much for coming. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm sorry, we have been having a little too much fun in the community call preamble. Did a little live demo of some text editing in the web. It was a lot of fun. So you can see we've got a good group. Thank you all for coming before the I actually thought today's meeting was going to be a little quieter with the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday tomorrow, but glad to have you here. I'm thankful for you all. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I'll go and share the agenda. The thing I was just trying to fix was things in the agenda here, so really no big deal. But we've got just a demo and just a little tiny cool discussion that we're going to talk about today. Um, but the first thing on the list, the demo, is Wash CLI human-friendly updates, removing IDs in I think most commands. And I think Taylor is going to talk about this one. Taylor, would you like to share the good word of what you've been working on?
or if I unmute, I will. So okay, time to share. This is going to be a ye old terminal demo, but it'll be a fun terminal demo. So I have a host started, and I have my newly built wash. So this thing is not yet released, unless you like to build from main, which I know there are some of you among us. And we've added some things that have bugged me for a very long time, and I decided to finally add in. We'd started this a little while ago with the new wash spyworks, but I'm gonna go ahead and start some actors. So we already know that the actor and provider stuff now automatically just like auctions. That's a fix we had a long time ago. So you can just go like this and it starts it somewhere. And honestly, most people, when they're using these commands here, are doing something with like local dev or trying something out or putting something together. And a lot more people are focused on if they're actually going to deploy an application using something like WDAM. So we made some changes that made this very focused on the actual like developer experience, someone who's developing an application or trying to put together an application. And so when you start these things, it now becomes, I'm going to show you a couple different things here that are actually really nice. I'm going to start with two providers and then okay, so I just put together like the most simple application possible, but now I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like. So before, when you had to do something like a link put, it was this gnarly, gross thing that looked like one 56 character ID, a second 56 character ID, a link name, and then also a bunch of other stuff. And in this case, we can simplify that quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and first show you what can happen if you do it wrong. So we can now match on the friendly names of hosts, the names of actors, the names of actors and providers, the call aliases of actors. So if you know, hey, I have this thing called Echo, we can't match on the OCI reference yet because that's not stored with the started actor. But like basically the name of the actor underneath you can search for using this. So if I do this right now, because I have two things running, it's actually going to tell me, hey, sorry, I couldn't do that, but here are the IDs. So you don't have to go look them up yourself anymore. So in the worst case scenario where you might have things running under multiple names, you're going to have something that's a lot cleaner of an experience telling you exactly exactly what's going on. And then what I can do though, because like I can change this from HTTP is I can change it to server, and it will say, hey, I put that link from the Echo thing to the server thing for you right now. So now it's linked, and you'll see there is not a key in sight. I just started it, got it running, have the HTTP thing running. And you also no longer have to do things like stopping things on specific hosts in a developer instance. I didn't want to spin up two hosts here. It'll tell you like, hey, you're running on two hosts. You have to tell me which hosts. But if you're running like most people would be for a developer, you're going to just be running the single node. You don't need to look up like every other like host ID and then put the host ID. So deleting also becomes a lot easier. Deleting links, deleting deleting other stuff. And right here, you'll see there's no need, unless you're using, if you put like your own link name, you could say foobar right here. But otherwise, you just have to put in the name of the actor you're unlinking and then the contract you're unlinking for, and then it'll do it for you. So once again, this is now, instead of passing 3 parameters, several of which were, one of which was at least a key ID, it is now just passing something you probably know as a human from knowing the name of the thing you're trying to do, and deleting it. And then stopping providers. So you can stop a provider, and this is an example with, I don't know what the host ID right now. You can use the friendly name. So if you do want to target a specific host ID to stop something on, you can just give it part of its friendly name. I also will point out, for those of you who are longtime wasmCloud users and may or may not have the prefixes of several known keys for different actors and providers. Yeah, it is fuzzy string matching. Well, not fuzzy, but it's substring matching. It's pretty flexible. Anyway, so for those of you who like know like that the HTTP server provider is like VA, I think it's VA, yeah, VAG. I have it on my screen. Like, and know like the first few characters, you can also put a prefix of the key ID and use that as well. So it takes a whole bunch of different options. I'm not going to do the host ID thing here, but host ID is now optional. Before, you had to pass host ID as a positional parameter in the CLI. I hated that, and I hated that it had to be an ID. So I got rid of that. And now all I have to do is say, hey, I'm going to stop the provider called client with this link. And I actually want to get rid of this too in the future. Just didn't want to have to do it now, where because you'll either have to do like an inspect under the hood, or like get the claims and pull it from the claims and figure it out that way. But I want to make it so you don't even have to pass wasmCloud HTTP client. You can just say wash.provider client. And as long as one provider matches, it's just going to stop it for you. So you don't even have to pass it. But right now, it's still simpler. You don't have to give it a host ID. And you just say, I want to stop the client, the HTTP client, essentially, and the contract ID. And if I do it, it'll say, okay, I'm going to stop it. And it stops it, picks the host for you, stops the thing. And it will warn you if you try to stop it on like, if it's on 3 hosts, it'll say like, sorry, you're going to need to give me a host ID. Here's all the hosts I have right now. So anyway, that's kind of the new behavior. It's a break. It's very much a breaking change, because the order of some parameters have changed, such as for deleting a link. Because you used to have like the link name, I think, before or something like that. And I put it at the end because it's optional now. And like host ID is no longer a positional parameter. It's a flag in almost all cases, except in things like wash stop host, where it's the thing you're stopping. I also think wash stop host can look up by friendly name too. I think I added that as well. So anyway, hopefully this is, for those of you who are longtime wasmCloud users, I'm guessing this is coming as a welcome addition. For those of you who are new, you no longer have to deal with the old style of doing this. But really it was just around focusing on creating a simpler developer experience, one that, like I said, has bugged me for a while, and hopefully should just be nicer to use for everyone. So if you see any bugs, like I tried to test it fairly well, could have missed something. If you see any bugs when we release this, just let us know, or open up a PR and we'll try to fix it. If someone wants to add something like a fuzzy search, go right ahead. We can try to, I'm welcome to anything to make it even better, but this was the first step just to making it way cleaner. So anyway, I'm guessing there's going to be no questions. It's pretty straightforward, but if there are any, please go ahead. Brooks, of course you have a question. We have to have the plant.
Yeah, I can't not be. I actually have more than one. So you thought you're getting off easy. I think that we had a discussion in the wasmCloud Slack, or I like threw something out there. Can you run wash get inventory right now?
Yes.
As long as everything or something is still running.
There's one thing running. Two things running.
I threw something in the wasmCloud Slack, or the wash thing, and I was like, hey, what do you all think about getting rid of displaying like the actor ID? Right. Because if you look at like your terminal has to be kind of exceptionally wide to display all of the information that the host inventory query gives you. I mean, it's because you had to have it before. Um, but if we can specify everything pretty much by friendly name and the actor ID can be a prefix, I feel like that means we could add like a long output or like verbose. I don't know what the standard would be like in addition to like our text or JSON output for the inventory, where here you see the information about the hosts, but then all you see is the first five of the ID and then the name and the reference, something like that.
Yeah, I would think that we chop off the first column of this lower section. Actor ID and provider ID would go poof, and then you just have it like in parentheses next to the name.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea usability wise, but you also want to send that information to whatever you're doing for auditing who's building what.
For sure.
Yeah, I think for this, I'm thinking for this output, this would make sense. For the actual output, you're going to get the full, because I mean, even now, I think. Yeah, you'll get the full thing.
Does that address your concern, Justin? Like having, I assume any like auditing and stuff, you're going to want to have somewhat automated. And so the JSON output will be preferred there. But I just want to double check.
Genius.
Yeah, so you're able to actually like, this is basically straight back, I think, from the API, from the control interface. So the point, and like, and actually just to point that out too, because Justin brought this up, so I'm just going to use it as a point to call it out again. WDAM is built using only public wasmCloud APIs. So we like any of this information and stuff and things things you're able to do, like for operators and people that want all the data, or to be able to collect things or send out warnings or alerts on something. All of that stuff is available, and it's actually exactly what WDAM does underneath the hood. It captures incoming events. It reacts to the events by publishing out commands and fetching data as well from the control interface if it needs to like populate additional data. So all the data is available for you to do a bunch of different things. So, hi, person I don't know with another question. What's yours?
Hey, yes, thank you so much. How does this actually work? Like when you say stop, provider client, how do you like query the host inventory and then
It's almost all claims based.
Okay.
It's claims and inventory based most of the time. So what I'm doing here to make it magical is not something like, because it's a developer experience, so it's much heavier weight. You're doing anywhere, depending on the command, anywhere from 2 to 4 calls against like the claims or the inventory or other stuff. So it's not something you do as a if you're trying to be efficient at something, but yeah, it's a couple different calls underneath the hood. And so it takes this, it grabs the claims, and then it lowercases everything and does a lowercase matching against the stuff that you send in. So it's really fuzzy. And like I said, I tried to make the error very, very clear when it comes back. From a code standpoint as well inside of this, if it's something we consider making available outside of Wash, like the error cases even it's an enum that says like, hey, there were no matches, there were multiple matches, and here's all the matches. Or like there was like an actual error talking to the API or something like that. And so if I scroll back to that, where did that go? Oh, there it is, right here. You have that. This is the exact error you're going to get every single time if you match multiple things. The idea was trying to be as clear as possible when you do it, like, hey, so just grab this key instead. So if I had done this and I'm like, oh, I didn't know this is the one, I can just grab the key of the thing I wanted to do and put the key in instead. If you pass in a key, it's just going to match and jump over all those calls. So like If I wanted to stop the provider, I can still do that with what I have. And it'll still stop it. You won't get the friendly name because it'll skip the lookup, but it'll stop it for you still.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a this is a good use of like our existing APIs just to make things like a lot simpler. I think we were talking about this the other day. Like all the tools for this kind of thing to work are there, and like this didn't require you to change anything on the host side. You're just doing all the lookups in Wash.
No, I literally already had some of the code because I used it for Wash Spy. So you could say like, hey, look up the actor that I want to spy on and just give me the name of it and I'm going to spy.
Yeah.
So that's it. I just built on that.
All right. Thank you, presenter. I have monopolized a decent bit of time asking questions. Anybody have any other questions for Taylor?
You calling me presenter made me feel like a little bit like, like those robot voices on things. Thank you, presenter one. I'll hand it back to MC1.
Couldn't think of a funny like collect call thing in time. All right. Hello everyone. Let's move on to the next part, which should be a fun discussion. We don't have any demos or anything planned for this specific part, but I want to officially congratulate all of the great folks at the Bytecode Alliance for the release of wasmTime 15. I mean, there have been many major releases in wasmTime's history, but this one is the most major, as in this officially marks what the Bytecode Alliance folks are calling the first full implementation of the component model, or WASI Preview 2. I am going to explain it from the lens that I understand it. So anybody is welcome to correct me as I'm coming in, but this is a complete implementation of the component model. And though this isn't this doesn't coincide exactly with like the blog where we're going to be calling the component model stable. This is essentially the reference implementation that's saying, hey folks, like come build on this, build some apps with components, have a good time. Here's our wits, here's our worlds, here's all the things. So huge shout out to the folks on the Bytecode Alliance side. And I definitely want to call out that we are actually already have support for this. Roman's PR merged actually just a few minutes ago. He was waiting on me to finish reviewing this, but we have wasmTime. Yeah, don't look at 12 minutes ago. That's a lie. Probably. We have the wasmTime 15 dependencies all in the in main in wasmCloud. And so, we're going to be cutting a release for this sooner rather than later. Just want to make sure that we get some of our examples updated and ducks in a row. I think I mentioned something about there not being, official blog and swiftly proven wrong, which is great. Here's another one that Bailey shared about the wasmTime release. This is here in the chat, but I'll try to get it over, or somebody's watching the YouTube stream, feel free to throw it in there. But all great stuff here. I haven't read this one yet, so I'm excited to do it as soon as we hop off this call. I've said a lot of things from the perspective that I understand it. I would love to hand it off to anyone else if they wanted to talk more about wasmTime 15.
That was really great, Brooks. Thank you. I do recommend checking out that blog post. The one thing I wanted to highlight there is how many different people from so many different organizations are contributing to wasmTime. It is probably one of the most battle-tested WebAssembly runtimes out there, apart from the V8 and SpiderMonkey, the browser implementations. So I love it. It's really cool that we work on it. And yeah, this is a huge milestone. I'll be partying with Alex Crichton on the Bytecode Alliance community stream on Tuesday, celebrating this release and describing kind of some of the parts of what it means. And obviously for us, we're very excited about the component model implementation, but there's a lot more that's in there. So you got to, it's a long blog, and that's why it has 3 authors. So anyways, yeah, that part's really good. And the next thing that's coming up is that we're actively working on the second reference implementation of the component model and WASI Preview 2. And so that is close. We're still hoping to get it done before the end of the year, which means WASI Preview 2 and Component Model Preview 2 both get to launch before the end of the year. So we're very close. But we have to have that second reference implementation to be able to call it. So that's inside JCO, the JavaScript component tooling, and the environment that it runs in is Node.js.
Yeah, I really liked at the Bytecode Alliance hackathon in Seattle, getting to play with all the JCO tooling. And running in Node.js is really cool. I think that'll really ground it for a lot of people who are used to looking at Rust and looking at WebAssembly, and you're like, oh, you're in the Rust and C land. I don't know about that. I'm just a Node.js JavaScript person. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, Bailey, I didn't see it. I was looking for the list of contributors in the blog. It's actually like one of the first sentences after the preamble. wasmTime and CraneLift have had over 1,600 commits from 129 different authors just this year. That's wild. That is so much has gone into the progress there. It's really, really awesome.
I also created an authors file in the wasmTime repo for places that are running wasmTime basically. And I said authors. I meant to say, what do we use in wasmCloud? What's the name of that file?
Adopters.
Adopters. You got it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Adopters. And there's so many different adopters because it's basically the runtime of choice across clouds. So feels good. Feels good to be part of that.
All right, folks, now is a good time to ask your very own Bailey Hayes any other questions about wasmTime 15. Oh, adopters. Nice. I'm gonna share that. I'm not just gonna look at it in the background. Yeah, look at these some big names on here. Cosmonic, super cool, very awesome organization. That's really cool to have there on that list. Wow, wasmCloud? What? All jokes aside, big names here. This is a great adopters list, and all of these running in production. Some of them are actually, it seems like multiple of them are not just running in production, but are running like user applications in production in their production. It's pretty huge. And that is just the initial group. All right, folks. Well, I think we are kind of slowing down here at the end. This is a good open time for any questions, things that folks want to talk about in the wasmCloud or the WebAssembly community. All right, everybody.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Hi. Some of you might know me from half a year ago or KubeCon. So I'm working for an IIoT company, and we're using Nats actually under the hood already. So and we're started dabbling in wasmCloud and Wasm more seriously recently. So because we're using Nats, we want to use the capability provider. but that seems to be, I don't know what the best way to push that further is and how to contribute, because it's a little bit, I think it's a bit outdated now, because the Rust, async Rust or async Nats has changed a little bit and the interfaces there changed. So what would be the best way to get into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're talking about the Nats capability provider for messaging, like doing
Correct, yeah.
pub requests, that kind of thing. Yeah. So we have all of our capability providers right now are actually kind of going through somewhat of a change. We're changing the underlying interface, which won't change the functionality, from our Smithy interface to WIT. But the good news is that that can kind of happen. So we're going to use the same interface types that WebAssembly is expecting to interact with, just to keep everything simple. So some of those, as they go through that process, have moved into the wasmCloud repo. Let me pull that up really quick and see if that one has moved over. But I agree that some of the like that Nats messaging provider, I mean, we probably built it like Nats 2.6 or 2.7 or something. It's been a little while. Jordan, Kevin actually put in a PR to add support for like tagging with their new like microservice things, which I think he was working on. Let me see. Okay, Nats hasn't quite moved over yet. So I think the best thing here would be to like, let's work together in the capability providers repo with the Nats provider. Because at the very least, we want to update the async Nats dependency. And then I didn't know if you had any other functionality you wanted to add, like to the link definition, like for the microservice tagging and things like that.
Yeah, we're not really using the microservice pattern. We're using consumers though to have really stable pointers, right? And so that would be a thing that also would probably influence the interface, right? Because you have to provide a lot more kind of context to it, or it might be different. So the interface. So we're not sure where the kind of responsibility of the interface ends and where the capability provider starts, right? What do we put where, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Connor, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'll just preface by saying I'm in the car, and so I hope I don't lose reception as I'm talking. But I did want to call out that Victor has been working on migrating those providers, as Brooks said, from the legacy or stable API that's described in Smithy to WIT. And I actually think he started on the Nats messaging provider this week. So I would expect that to land pretty darn soon here. And as Brooke said, it will use the same existing interface, so no breaking changes here. But I do believe that part of that update will be including the latest async Nats client version.
Excellent. Yeah, that's all I needed to know, because then we're gonna wait and see how that develops and get in touch. Maybe also help out testing and so on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that was not obvious from how contributor notes and so on. What's the current thinking about, the background thinking, what people are talking about and so on. So thank you.
Yeah. And I actually think that in the current interface, there might be room for something like actually getting to create consumers, because that's a really I don't want to say a more common pattern, but it feels very like Kafka-esque, like creating a consumer and then consuming from a stream rather than just like topic-based messaging. That might be, that might be something that we can satisfy with a streams interface, which I think will probably be the standard. But we should work together on that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Cool. I'll reach out on Slack now.
Yeah, that sounds great. If you just want to, you can reach out like right in the public channel. If you want, we can all, because I'm sure there are other people who have the same question, and it's a good call out. Try to keep more clarity around like what we're working on those like specific providers. Sweet. Other questions?
Yeah, it might be a bit of an open one, and it might be worth discussing elsewhere. But there is talk of registries, and with registries comes metadata. I'm wondering, we've had some discussions in the wasmCloud Slack about metadata as well, and I've had personal conversations about it. But there's this extra piece of like, where does this live, where does it come from, who made this, like all this extra meta information about components, that we it would be beneficial to be able to display in both the wasmCloud UI and then selfishly in the Cosmonic UI. I'd like to play with that a bit. I think Bailey might be able to talk to this a little bit with the WOG stuff, but what does that look like with components and WebAssembly in general?
Yeah, so this question has a lot to it. There are things that we can do from just a pure OCI perspective that's really nice and valuable and easy to do. There are common labels, basically metadata that you can add to images that would include info like your author and all that kind of stuff, that we could totally leverage and use without having to pull in anything that external that's happening. The first reference implementation of WorgIO is actually now available on the Bytecode Alliance. And so it's missing features that I would want before we'd start pulling it in, like a discovery API, for example, and other kind of key things that you would sort of expect. But the entire story behind Worg is that we want to define a protocol that any package manager or anything could essentially implement. And it's separate. This is separate from what your content storage is. So the content storage can still be OCI, probably will be OCI, but you need a tool that helps you speak the lingo that is, oh, I want this component, it has these it has this WIT definition and it has these dependencies. And so when I'm using a tool like Cargo Component and I'm building a component, from source, it's got dependencies on wasmIO, so that I can print a standard out and standard in and that kind of stuff. So pull in the latest version of that or a specific version of that from some registry. And Worg is what is the lingo for how to figure all that out. But that work is still underway, so I don't know that we'll necessarily use it yet in wasmCloud. And I think we can make something happen in like a day if we want to try the label route.
Cool, appreciate it. Thanks.
Oh, also the WASM working group is another place where a lot of those conversations are happening in terms of OCI and components. And the next meeting on Tuesday is going to be going into a lot of that, if you're interested.
Bailey, that might be if that's a public meeting, that'd be a good link in the WebAssembly channel in the wasmCloud Slack, if you have it handy.
I have it handy.
Nice.
Lovely. All right, here's the Google Doc for the meeting notes. Here. No, this is actually the CNCF, Caroline. So we're part of lots of different open source communities. This one's in the CNCF, and then there's a calendar for the CNCF, and that's where you would subscribe basically to join a community meeting. And the WASM working group one is on this page here.
cncf.io/calendar.
It's really nice.
All right, folks. Other questions? Don't know the answer to that one. That's a good one though. Oh, and there we go. Solved. Great.
Come on, really?
All right, everyone. Well, I think we're gonna go ahead and stop the recording here. But for all of you folks who are in the US, please safe travels today as you go see family. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you all next week. So take care.